The multiverse is a mind-boggling concept that suggests that our universe is one of an infinite amount of alternate realities. We have seen over the past half-decade that the concept of the multiverse has burst into pop culture, with film series capitalising on the introduction of the multiverse for storytelling. The multiverse is a highly debated concept between scientists. Of course, the negatives with the multiverse is that it is unknown how exactly we would be able to test for the existence of multiple bubble universes. One of the only conceivable ways we could do this is if our universe was to collide with another universe. For example, in the 2010s, scientist Stephen M. Feeney analysed the Wilkinson's microwave anisotropy probe data and discovered evidence that our universe may have collided with a parallel universe in the distant past. But later this evidence was analysed using better equipment, and no evidence of a collision with a bubble universe was ever discovered. One of the mainstream predictions for the multiverse is the many worlds interpretation. A brief description of this interpretation is that one aspect of quantum mechanics is that certain observations cannot be predicted absolutely. Instead, there is a range of possible observations, each with different probability. According to the many worlds interpretation, each of these possible observations corresponds to a different universe. Suppose a six-sided dice is thrown, and that the result of the throw corresponds to observable quantum mechanics. All 6 possible ways that the dice can fall would correspond to 6 different universes. These universes would be branching timelines, so if we analyse our own lives, for example, this morning I had a coffee with no sugars. Some mornings I have coffee with sugar in it, and sometimes I have no milk. The many worlds interpretation would suggest that there would be a universe where I had coffee with sugar in this morning, and this would be the only substantial difference. But because we don't know how the causality of our actions would play out, it is almost impossible to predict how different these timelines may turn out. The interesting question regarding the multiverse that movies, games and TV are promoting is what would an interaction between you and an alternate version of yourself be like? To be frank, I would expect that under most circumstances, the experience would be pretty mundane. It would all depend on what version of yourself you visit. If the multiverse does exist, then I would expect close-by neighbouring realities to be pretty similar to our own. And only when you travel further into the multiverse would you happen upon bizarre, unrecognisable realities. If you take infinity into account, then anything that can happen will happen, so there are bound to be realities where you are an evil person, so it would seem to be wise not to venture to these realities. The Kardashev Scale attempts to predict the different stages of potentially advanced intelligent societies out there in our universe. Anything above a Kardashev Type 5 civilization would potentially have the ability to roam the multiverse. If this level of advancement is possible, I believe that traversing the multiverse would make little to no sense unless your universe is coming to an end and you need to find a reality that you can slip into without causing major issues. There may sadly not be a universe out there where you are Spider-Man, but there would be one out there where you are the richest person on the planet, who has influenced the world for good. But there would also be the polar opposite to this. My question for you is, what is the most interesting alternate reality version of yourself that you would like to visit? Before I leave you today, I would like to mention another fun idea. This could be a reason that we have not seen any time travelers before. As we know, forward time travel is possible, but backwards time travel is the one that we can still not wrap our heads around. But for the sake of this video, we will say that it is discovered. Then why have we not seen any time travelers? This could be because when someone goes back in time, this opens up 2 branching timelines. One where they came back in time and influenced things, and another one where the original's timeline stays intact, where no meddling has been done. The multiverse is one of those concepts where when you think about it, it is very bizarre and mind-melting, and your mind can go to a lot of places, a lot of good places and a lot of bad places when you're looking at the multiverse, because obviously when you, like we said in the video, when you bring in infinity into account, there is things that can happen, will happen. So if the universe permits a certain thing to happen, then it will happen, you know. There is a version where you are Hitler in 1945 and you were born in 1945. Like, if it can happen, it will happen, and your, you know, compilation of DNA occurred at that point in history instead, and there's points where you occur, you know, future, like down the line in future history, like you're around in the year 3000 rather than being born in the year 2000 or whatever it was that you were born. and maybe you can exist forever because, you know, you become a cyborg or something like this in that reality. Also, when discussing the multiverse, it's great to discuss quantum immortality. Is it a thing where our consciousness cannot cease to exist and we move into different realities and we slightly don't notice any of these things, and maybe that's the reason for the Mandela effect? Or maybe the Mandela effect is people just forgetting that Nelson Mandela was in freaking prison, not dead. Or maybe it's the fact that people forget that, you know, the dude has a monocle, or, you know, and all these things about Monopoly and things like that. There's so many different ones, and they're also very, very bizarre and interesting. So, you know, it's crazy. Like, imagining being in an alternate reality is quite bizarre. You would probably have different clothes. You may potentially have a different personality. You know, it would be you, but it also would not be you at the same time. So it would be very good. There would also be ones where you don't even look like you at all. Like, so, you know, it's cool. And with all these movies like Marvel films, you know, Marvel's always been into the multiverse stuff for a long time. But of course, you know, comics and superhero movies and stuff did not become mainstream till not too long ago. And then, you know, bringing in concepts like the multiverse is quite a complicated thing to discuss, because, you know, we're talking about branching timelines and realities, and people have to keep track of what these alternate reality people are, X, Y, and Z. But discussing it in our real world is something that's really fun, because, you know, you're discussing alternate versions of yourself, you know. So it's really interesting. Imagine an alternate reality where Hitler was the greatest dude ever, like, you know, he was the wokest guy on the planet. Like, that makes me laugh to think that there's probably an alternate reality if the multiverse exists and it's infinite. Then, you know, there's probably one where that is a thing, and he's just like, well, you know, we're gonna, you know, give all the rights to everybody, and then it's just like, well, you should look at the version of you from my timeline, you jackass. Anyway, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video on the multiverse. Let me know anything you would like me to cover in the future, because I love discussing deep topics, and it is the reason that I created this channel. So let me know any fun topics you want me to discuss. Make sure you're pondering all the deep thoughts about reality. Enjoy your day. Have a wonderful time, and peace out, my homies. Goodbye.